The past several years in the sports world have been strange for a variety of reasons. We had all of the activism on full display in the aftermath of the George Floyd riots, Black Lives Matter, people kneeling for the national anthem, people disrespecting their country, all the protests we saw going on in the NFL and the NBA and the MLB. Then, of course, you had the COVID years, all this weird shit. And a lot of leagues took massive hits to their reputations because of that. A lot of them had struggles with viewership and attendance because of those things. And some of them have backed off a little bit. But one of the unforgivable things that happened during that time were the Washington Redskins decided that, you know what, after decades and decades and decades, this name, it's just too offensive. We can't do it anymore. Despite the fact that Native Americans as a whole had no problem with the name, and virtually it was only white activist liberals that really wanted it changed, they said they're going to change it. They dropped the name. They became the Washington Football Team, then the Washington Commanders, and we also saw the Cleveland Indians follow suit. They became the Cleveland Guardians, abandoning a name with decades and decades, almost 100 years of history. Cleveland Indians changed their name to the Guardians. And look, I can't pretend to know what's in the heart and mind of every single Redskins fan or Indians fan with their teams being renamed. I know what I can tell you from the people I interact with, from the people that watch this channel. Overwhelmingly, people don't like the change. Fans of the team do not like the change. Nevertheless, it happened. Well, Donald Trump is calling once again for them to change their names back. Trump calls on Commanders and Guardians to ditch woke name changes. Times are different. And yet, the reality is, it was never a popular thing to do to change these names, right? These leagues, whether because of their own volition or because they got tricked into thinking that it would be so offensive and people would love these name changes, whatever it was, they changed those names, despite the fact that the rest of the population thought it was retarded for them to do so. Well, here's Trump's full statement. The Washington whatevers should immediately change their name back to the Washington Redskins football team. There's a big clamoring for this. Likewise, the Cleveland Indians, one of the 6 original baseball teams with a storied past, are great Indian people in massive numbers want this to happen. Their heritage and prestige is systematically being taken away from them. Times are different now than they were 3 or 4 years ago. We're a country of passion and common sense. Owners, get it done. Well, the Guardians responded. They said, hey, we're not really interested in changing the name back. We're going to continue to build up the Guardians brand. Gay as shit, in my opinion. The Redskins, I don't think they've responded yet. But the truth is, the reasons behind these name changes is all cloaked behind, well, Native Americans are very offended by it, when that's never the case. I'm not saying there's not a handful of Native American activist groups that weren't pushing for it. I'm not saying that there's not a single Native Americans offended by it. I'm saying as a whole. And this is over the course of years and years and years, even all the way back 10 years ago, 9 years ago, whatever it was. I think it's 2016. Washington Post poll shows Native Americans unbothered by the Redskins name, basically showing that around 90% of Native Americans had no problem with this name whatsoever. And we're not even talking about the Indians name. We're talking about the Redskins name. Had no problem. And in fact, the vast majority of the country was completely unbothered by it, but the rest of the country seemed to have more of a problem with it than Native Americans did. I think 23% of respondents, of the total population, were like, maybe we should think about changing that name. But in terms of a mass amount of Native Americans giving a shit, they did not. They never did. And in fact, a lot of them enjoy the fact that they have these things named after them. The Washington Redskins, the initial logo and the name and all that stuff had a lot of Native American involvement in that. And they've erased that history and decided to go with like high school sounding names like the Commanders and the Guardians. It's ridiculous. Look, I don't know. Trump's talking about, well, maybe we won't do the stadium deal unless they change it back. I don't think I don't know how much he's going to invest in that. And the reality is, I don't know if that should necessarily get in the way of any deal that happens. I don't think he's going to stop talking about it. I don't know how invested he is in seeing these things done. And really, ultimately, he has no true control over these teams changing their name. They should change it back because it was a mistake. That's why they should change it back. Because you still have a massive fan base for both of these teams that thinks the new names, some of them are like going to go along with it. Okay, I guess we're the Guardians now, we're the Commanders. They don't like these name changes. They just don't. And if you snap the fingers and the teams were renamed tomorrow, a lot of fans would be very happy about it. And not very many people, not any significant number of people would actually be offended. We might hear some noise. We might see some activist groups. We might see some white liberals that are really triggered by it. But all in all, sports fans want these teams to get their actual names back. We'll see if anything comes from it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. Smash a like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, share this video out there, and I'll talk to you later.